Imagine being a woman in early 1800s England with no money, no family business to inherit, and no means of supporting yourself. Your only path to survival, security, and any hope of happiness is marriage. Not love, marriage. Marriage to a man who will provide a roof over your head and ensure you don't die, poor and alone. This is the world Elizabeth Bennet is born into. Elizabeth is different from other girls her age. She's witty, intelligent, and fiercely independent in her thinking. While her mother desperately schemes to marry off her 5 daughters to wealthy men, Elizabeth holds a conviction that terrifies her family. She will not marry unless she is truly in love. It's not rebellion. It's her only form of power in a world that offers women almost none. So when news arrives that a wealthy bachelor named Mr. Charles Bingley has rented a grand estate nearby, the entire neighborhood is in upheaval. Elizabeth watches her mother and sisters fawn over this stranger with a detachment she can't quite hide. Mr. Bingley arrives, and he is everything the neighborhood hoped for: charming, warm, genuinely kind, and clearly wealthy. He is enchanted almost immediately by Elizabeth's eldest sister, Jane. Elizabeth sees something rare, a man who seems genuinely good, with no hidden calculations. She begins to believe her sister might actually have a chance at happiness based on affection rather than necessity. But Bingley does not come alone. He brings with him his close friend, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy. Mr. Darcy is tall, striking, and enormously rich. He is also, by all immediate appearances, the most disagreeable man Elizabeth has ever met. At their first social gathering, Darcy is cold and distant. He barely speaks to anyone except Bingley. When Elizabeth overhears him saying her neighborhood is beneath his notice and that she is not handsome enough to tempt me, any possibility of friendship is obliterated. Elizabeth decides in that moment that Mr. Darcy is arrogant, selfish, and beneath her contempt. Her prejudice is instant and complete. As weeks pass, Elizabeth watches Darcy refuse to dance, refuse to engage with the neighborhood's young women, and remain perpetually isolated in his own superiority. Meanwhile, her sister Jane's feelings for Bingley deepen. Elizabeth is thrilled at the prospect of Jane's happiness, but she also becomes increasingly aware of Darcy's strange habit of watching her. He does it when he thinks she won't notice. Across rooms, during conversations, during walks. It makes no sense. He has called her plain. He has shown her absolute disdain. Yet his eyes follow her constantly. Then Darcy does the unthinkable. He arrives at a gathering, finds Elizabeth alone, and asks her to marry him. But there is no tenderness in his proposal, no acknowledgement of love. Instead, he tells her he is proposing despite her family's shameful behavior, despite her mother's vulgarity, despite her sister Lydia's flirtatiousness. He is proposing because his feelings have overcome his sense of propriety. It is the most insulting declaration of affection Elizabeth has ever heard. She refuses him immediately and harshly. She tells him she cannot accept a man who has shown her such disrespect, and whose very proposal demonstrates the pride and arrogance she has seen in him from the beginning. Days later, Darcy does something unexpected. He writes Elizabeth a letter. In this letter, he begins to explain himself, not to apologize for the proposal itself, but to explain the man he actually is and why he acted as he did. He tells her that he rejected her at their first meeting, not because she is plain or unworthy, but because he was guarding his heart. He had been hurt before by people seeking his money and status. He tells her about his relationship with another man in his life, a man named Wickham. who appears charming and sympathetic, but who is actually dishonest and dangerous. Darcy reveals that Wickham has been spreading lies about him in the neighborhood, portraying himself as the victim of Darcy's cruelty. But the truth, which Darcy now reveals to Elizabeth, is far more complex. Wickham attempted to seduce Darcy's young sister for money, and when Darcy prevented it, Wickham poisoned the neighborhood against him. As Elizabeth reads these words, everything she believed about Darcy begins to shift. Her prejudice, built on a foundation of misunderstanding and wounded pride, crumbles. But the revelation does not end with the letter. Over the following weeks, Elizabeth begins to see Darcy differently. She notices his quiet strength, his loyalty to those he loves, his willingness to sacrifice his own comfort for others. She learns that it was Darcy, not Bingley, who secretly helped her sister Jane by ensuring Bingley's sisters would leave town when they were being cruel. She discovers that Darcy has been working behind the scenes, solving problems, protecting people, asking for nothing in return. Most shockingly, she learns that her youngest sister Lydia, the sister Elizabeth loves, but whose recklessness could destroy the entire family's reputation, has eloped with Wickham. In the eyes of society, this means Lydia is ruined, and if Lydia is ruined, all 5 sisters become unmarriageable. It is the family's catastrophe. Elizabeth is devastated. But then she learns the truth. Darcy has paid for Lydia to be brought back safely and has arranged her marriage to Wickham to protect the family's honor. He did this quietly, secretly, expecting nothing in return. He did this for Elizabeth. Elizabeth's heart opens. She realizes that Darcy's initial coldness was not cruelty, but shyness, a protection mechanism. His pride was not arrogance, but dignity. The man she despised was actually the most honorable person she has ever known. When Darcy proposes a second time, this time with vulnerability, with genuine affection, with a true acknowledgement of her worth, Elizabeth accepts him, but she also tells him something equally important. She is grateful for his letter, grateful for his actions, grateful that they both were willing to shed their first impressions and see each other truly. Their marriage is not born from desperation or economics, though both of them were subject to those pressures. It is born from mutual respect, genuine love, and the hard work of understanding another person beyond initial judgment. As the novel closes, Elizabeth's sister Jane also marries Bingley, and their family's future is secure. But more than that, Elizabeth has achieved something far rarer in her world. She has married for love, and she has married a man who sees her, values her, and loves her completely. Pride and Prejudice is ultimately a story about how our assumptions blind us and how the courage to look beyond first impressions can transform everything. Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy was not born from malice. It was born from hurt and the need to protect herself in a world that offered her few protections. Darcy's pride was not born from arrogance. It was born from fear and the need to guard his heart against people who wanted him for his money. Both of them had to be willing to admit they were wrong. Both had to be vulnerable enough to see the other person clearly. And in doing so, they found not just love, but partnership, respect, and a kind of equality that was truly revolutionary for their time. That is the power of this novel. It reminds us that the most important journey we can take is the journey from judgment to understanding. Thanks for watching this summary of Pride and Prejudice. If you enjoyed Elizabeth and Darcy's journey, subscribe for more book summaries and new stories like this. You won't want to miss what's next.